expired. The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Green, who is also the chair of the subcommittee on oversight and investigations, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I thank the witness for appearing. I'm always honored to have him here before the committee. My question has to do with the State Small Business Credit Initiative. This is an initiative that was started under a Republican administration. It has served us exceedingly well, and the chairwoman, with her insight and foresight, has expanded this program to make sure that it covers women and people of color to a greater extent. We're talking about having this initiative be funded with $10 billion, and this is in the COVID package. And this $10 billion can drive up to $100 billion of private sector investments in these small businesses. States would be required to submit a plan, as well as other jurisdictions, on how expeditiously these funds can be delivered to help small businesses respond to and recover from the pandemic. A plan to encourage participation of MDIs, Minority Depository Institutions, as well as CDFIs, Community Development Financial Institutions, would also be a part of this. Mr. Chairman, my question to you is simply this: how important is it that small businesses receive these capital investments? They sometimes find it exceedingly difficult to acquire funds of this type, the type that we have in this package. How important is it that these funds during this pandemic get to these small businesses?
Well, small businesses are under a lot of pressure in this at the current time, more so than many of the larger businesses that had resources to get through this. I would say MDIs and CDFIs are very important channels for reaching them. It's not appropriate for me to take a position on this particular provision and its inclusion in the in legislation, but I would just say that it is important for small businesses, and you mentioned MDIs and CDFIs. We, as you know, we work very closely with those organizations and think highly of the contribution they make to our economy.
Yes, sir, and I concur with what you said about working closely with them. I happen to be aware of some of your good works. The community banks, as you know, I'm very much concerned about them, and some of them are on the margins, and this type of assistance to some of these smaller banks can be of great help to them. I don't want you to comment on a specific bank or specific banks in general, but I am concerned about the need to maintain these institutions that have a niche. They have a clientele that somehow and sometimes will not be met. Their needs won't be met if they don't have these institutions that are in the communities. Have you found that it's good to have these institutions in these communities where the need is not always met?
Yes, I mean, we think community banks are a very important part of the fabric of our society, and we see them under longer term secular pressures. They've been declining, and we don't want to do anything that adds to that through regulatory burden. And actually, we've got a subcommittee. We have a community banker on the board of governors, and we try to do everything we can to not be part of the problem, because people are leaving small towns and moving to cities and things like that, and that is putting pressure on rural community banks. But overall, they know their communities, and we want them to operate safely and soundly and successfully in their communities.
Well, thank you very much. I have very little time left, so what I would like to do is simply acknowledge the chairwoman for helping us to get this $10 billion into the COVID package. Ms. Beatty also helped us to modify it along with one of my Republican colleagues, so that the very small businesses will get some help. There are small businesses, and then there are very small businesses, and we don't want to leave any of them behind. So, Madam Chair, I thank you very much for the opportunity to ask these questions. I yield back.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate your comments. I will now recognize